Hey, it's the Double On Radio podcast. I wanted to see
Neat.
how long I could go with everyone just getting
Good job.
perpetually more confused. Uh, Look, we're talking about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We're talking about video game logic. We're talking about a few other things. That's the show. We talk about video games. I hope you know that because that's what it is. Is everyone excited to talk about some video games?
Yeah. Can't wait.
Ryan, you sound so excited right now.
Look, I move in 6 days. Oh, I've
Mind
got
is elsewhere.
other concerns. Mind empty. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about some brief news first because there's a couple of bits of gaming news that tie into what we're going to talk about that I want to talk about real quick. The first is a big article that dropped from GamesIndustry.biz about Microsoft confirming that Game Pass is cannibalizing regular sales. Now, I think to us, this comes as no surprise. I would hope so, because that's kind of what happens with a format like this. You want to convert people into subscribers instead of selling box products. So the reason I want to bring this up is that this is one of the biggest news stories of this week was Game Pass cannibalizing sales. I just want to be like, that's not a doom and gloom thing. That's until they show numbers that are the relevant profit based on is this converting to more money for them or is it converting to less, it's not gonna mean anything for Game Pass specifically, because this doesn't mean it's not profitable.
Does this mean they're going to be changing the pricing on Game Pass, or they're going to be new weirder tiers or something like that?
Yeah, it's possible. I think everyone's been kind of on the train of there's going to be a price increase for Game Pass at some point. I would guess at some point this year we're going to get at least a $1 bump or something. Keep it relatively small, but it converts to a lot of money.
And they're going to be introducing family and friend plans pretty soon. So I'd imagine that would probably make them want to increase the price a bit as well, because people are going to be saving so much money that way.
That's true. So yeah, I think that's something to look for, is see what Game Pass does this year, because I'm curious to know how this in the long term turns out to be. Because a number of other developers have come out saying that their games wouldn't be possible without Game Pass, because games like Descenders is a big one that is not super marketable, but has had a huge amount of success on Game Pass. So I think this is a really interesting thing from the games as art perspective. I think Game Pass can be a very good thing because you have the ability and the backing to create some smaller scale products that you may not have been able to create before in games that may not exist otherwise. But at the same time, there needs to be money for those games to be worth funding. I think from the Game Pass perspective, depends, because Microsoft does have more money than God. So
I mean, well, think about how many people wouldn't know about Hi-Fi Rush if Game Pass didn't.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is I think a great case for Game Pass, but at the same time, there was an interview that was done with John Johansson, I think his name is, who was the director of Hi-Fi Rush, where he stated that Hi-Fi Rush was actually in development before Tango was acquired, before Bethesda was acquired. So there is the timeline there is a little wonky, because that game was in development before the acquisition, just by a small team of people. And then supposedly Bethesda got to internally playtest it, and that was kind of the thing that kickstarted the conversation of should the shadow drop be a thing? What would be the strategy here? Do we go to Game Pass? And that's kind of how that conversation came about. So it was an interesting interview that I encourage anyone to look up. I believe it was a MinMax interview with John Johansson. Good stuff in that. All right. The other big thing of news is that Firaxis, who people may or may not know, that's the developer of all the XCOM games that are the more recent ones and Marvel Midnight Suns, just lost two of their higher-ups. They had worked there for 20-something years, so these are significant people that were studio leads. At the same time, working somewhere for 20 years, I could see you just wanting to move on regardless. I don't think this is necessarily a bad sign. Yeah. What might be a bad sign is that I believe Midnight Suns has been confirmed to have not sold nearly what the expectation was.
Yeah, a lot of that. Ryan, I think you might be the only person I've seen talk about the game after it came out. I have not.
Exactly. That's why I want to bring this up. I want to remind people about Midnight Suns because it's really good.
It seemed like a high quality game. It's not for me, and I don't really think they did the best job advertising it either. To be honest,
absolutely not.
Yeah,
the advertisements for Midnight Suns were somewhat atrocious. I think would be the right way to put it. That's the case of Fire Axis losing leads. Midnight Sun's not doing so hot. It's free to play until this podcast is out. So if it's out and you're not listening to the Twitch stream, too bad.
Yeah, and the other thing too, it's not like they're losing these higher ups like during, production of a game. It's afterwards, which is, like you said, completely normal.
Yeah.
It's just notable because these people had been there for a very, very long time. Right. And the big thing was that the lead of all the Fire Axis XCOM games has left. So whether or not XCOM is going to be the same in the future, I think is up in the air right now. Could definitely end up being pretty different. This last thing that I want to talk about a little bit is Wild Hearts. Wild Hearts came out, Brett. We've been playing a little bit of it. To my understanding, you have also been playing some.
I've been playing. I wanted to play more, but I have a life, and that gets in the way of playing Wild Hearts.
Wild Hearts is certifiably not more important than regular life.
That's true.
But I do want to bring up Wild Hearts because, oh boy, I want to play this game really, really badly because it's very fun, but there's so many bugs.
Yeah, I will say it seems like this is an age-old case of the return of the mid to late 2000s crappy PC port. Because on Xbox, I've minor graphical problems have been like the only problem at all. And all the things that because I've been all the rest of my friends play it on PC, which there's crossplay, so that part doesn't matter. But when I'm looking around for stuff to help them, they have their own Discord and subreddit and stuff, and it's all it just runs really poorly on PC. Randomly, it'll just hitch and stutter with no correlation to settings most of the time. Turns out that if you change the quality of your headset sound input,
that also only works for some people, which is even more bizarre.
Yeah, if you change that, that has had.
That's if you change it from stereo to 5.1 surround. Sometimes that fixes issues.
Which I made the joke to everybody that sent me this, that this is the sequel to the From Software spaghetti code where weapon durability is tied to frame rate.
Yeah.
This is the more advanced version of that, which is only a good sign when your things are relatable back to FromSoft games.
What?
But yeah, it's a shame. It doesn't seem, other than the Steam score being abysmal right now because people can't perfectly run the game. It doesn't seem like the crummy PC version is ruining the ratings or anything, because the game is really good.
Yeah,
really, really fun.
That's why we're talking about it right now. If this was just a bad port that came out and it wasn't fun, but this had a trial on EA Play, which meant a lot of people got to try it through Game Pass if you're on PC or you have Ultimate. You get to play the first few hours of it. And I think that sold a lot of people in this game, aside from the fact that it is just having so many issues. And I will say, the console footage that I've seen, it runs okay, but this game does not look like a current gen video game.
I 100% disagree with that. I think the first island area has a lot of things that break with the lighting, which is one of the graphical things that does happen on console. But Ryan, the second that you get to any of the the final monster for the zone encounters, because I hesitate to call them boss fights because everything you fight is a boss fight. It's a Monster Hunter game. They look incredible. The whole second area, which is do you know how in Monster Hunter
I've
World
reached the second area.
Okay, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous when you get
So,
on the top layers and you
Brett,
get the sunset.
how far did you get in Monster Hunter World?
Every single time that I play it, I put like 40 hours in, and then I get to high rank, and I get bored because it takes so long to
Did you
grind to
play
high
in the
rank.
Coral Highlands of Monster Hunter World?
Yes.
Because I went back and did a comparison of these two because I wanted to know what was going on. And I will say the art direction for Wild Hearts, phenomenal. Like, across the board, it's a beautiful game. But the textures in Wild Hearts are so bad everywhere. It's not a small problem. It's like every single thing is bad. And looking at this, as I did some digging to figure out if I wanted to play the PS5 version or the PC version, because the PC one was not running great, but it was at least hitting 60 pretty consistently on my rig. Part of that's that I don't have a 4K monitor, so I'm not pushing resolution very much, but the PS5 version did not look good in motion. It's super blurry, which has not just been mine. I don't know about Xbox. I didn't look about Xbox because I don't own one, so you might be having a much better experience.
I think so.
Console related. The PS5 version did not look good. The PC version, I am playing on fully maxed out settings, and I sent Wyatt a picture of this before.
Oh yeah,
it looks bad. Like, it just looks bad. Like, there's, if you stand still for any amount of time, I'm seeing textures that are, and the thing is, I play a lot of Omega Force games specifically, which is the developer behind this, which is the Dynasty Warriors team.
That's kind of Play-Doh-y.
The Dynasty Warriors, I've been playing Dynasty Warriors 7 recently, which is from early PS3. I would wager that looks better than this in terms of just texture quality. I think a lot of that is not, because I want to clarify, I don't think that the game complexity is last gen or anything, because there's so much going on, and it largely works very well, which is, I think, a thing that's only possible because of the fact that we have newer hardware. It just looks bad. It does not look good.
I don't know. I should stream me playing.
You got to show the version that you're playing, and then look at some of the footage of me streaming it, because I want to know the direct comparison.
Because there have been parts where I've been fighting a guy in a cave, and then he gets out into like the upper section of the coral island with like the little mini Stonehenges that look like portals or whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, this looks like Ghost of Tsushima. This is great. And that is not the experience that you are having.
It's not the experience I'm having, and it's also like not the experience that I think anyone on PC is having.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say, maybe you're just having the Wyatt bug curse.
No,
I am, because I haven't gotten to the bugs that I've had, Wyatt. That's all just the visual stuff. That's some of my base visual stuff. And the rumor is that Koei Tecmo has put out is that the reason performance is so bad is because of a CPU like bottleneck, and it looks like this might also be affecting consoles because they're not hitting frame rate targets that they should be hitting on the different modes, which is weird because the game looks like it should be. So yeah, there's a bunch of weird issues going on with performance that supposedly they're going to be fixed next week. The big problem, and this is way worse than the performance issues on PC for me, is that sometimes randomly the audio will not cut out, but will cut to only music and then sound effects, but only some sound effects like 3 seconds after they should have happened. And it doesn't fix. Like, you can't fix it without closing and restarting the game. I haven't tried like changing to full screen and see if maybe that fixes it, but
all I can say, Ryan, is welcome to my personal hell that I experience
bizarre,
every
Wyatt.
time.
I'm so
Every
sorry.
time I turn on my PC. Welcome. This is my life.
It's spreading.
It's super strange. It's one of the weirdest bugs I've seen, because it's not just the audio. When it then goes to a cutscene, like if you're hunting a thing that has a cutscene afterwards, it will skip through all the text. So it just skips all the text as it happens, which is bizarre. So I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense
at
all.
Problem. Because it's really bad. It legitimately is like, whenever that happens, I just quit and restart the hunt, because
yeah, I would too.
It's a nightmare. Yeah, bonkers, very strange, and it makes it very hard to react to things because the monsters in this game are very, very big and do attacks that cover the whole screen and things. very quickly, which is fun. But when you don't have the audio feedback necessary to know what's coming, it makes it much harder to dodge anything or to like set up your karakuri in time to actually get out of the way. But that said, aside from all the bugs, it's a great time.
Yeah, I obviously, it's this is not a case where I can be like, oh, this is just a Wyatt problem, because the majority of the people playing on the platform are having the problem, unless the virus is finally spread, in which case we are doomed.
Yeah,
And it's on a massive scale.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, and it's very strange that I am here to think that this is worth pointing out in a positive light. But Ryan, this is a video game where you can invite your friend and play together.
Brett, it's mind blowing.
Oh my god! You don't have to join a server. You don't have to get into
a button
lobby
that you could just press when you start a thing that goes join multiplayer, and it just works. And it's
there's no invading, no summoning, nothing's built around that. There's no joining a lobby and waiting for a queue to
good old co-op.
Guess what?
How does it work if there's no like share?
You click on your friend's name and you invite them, and then they join.
I can't believe it. I can't believe we've reached the technology.
If the game is smart enough to know that if all of the people, because you can have 3 of the people in I hesitate to even to call it a lobby because it's not a lobby, at the same time, at the same like story progress, it will all move everyone's story forward together, so you don't have to go back.
People don't want to replay the same section of the game after they've already beat it maybe multiple times.
But which is the thing that you're going to have done.
What? That's crazy.
Because you're already. Oh, I want this part from this monster. I've gotten so unlucky. I fought them 7 times. I still haven't gotten it. I'm not gonna fight them 6 more to help my friend also not get it and do the story. Like, no, that sucks. That's boring and annoying. That's what we've been dealing with. So many games have gone backwards and have done things more complicated like that for so long. It feels nice to have a game that's just like, all right, do you guys want to play? Yeah, sure, I'll play for an hour. And the hour is spent playing the game and not trying to find each other or trying to redo things that you already did yesterday or trying to like get someone else's world up to speed so they can fit.
Or gets 4 of you into a lobby and then sends 3 of you off to the same game and 1 of you off to a different game.
Yep.
Battlefield.
Wild.
Sorry.
I do want to talk about some of the differences between this and Monster Hunter because I think that's going to be a big deciding factor for a lot of people. I want to start this out by saying I think they're both different enough to, if you like one of them, you will probably like the other, and there's totally enough space for both of them to exist. Like, it's not a monster hunting games. There's a few of them now, but the vast majority of them are not good. It's really just Monster Hunter, and I would add Wild Hearts to the list of Monster Hunting games that are very good right now. Wild Hearts is significantly more arcadey. It's a lot faster in basically every facet. Hunts are quicker. It's much faster to like chase down a monster. You're typically through a hunt in what I would call like in-game speeds of Monster Hunter, where you're through in like 20 minutes at the most, is like the start of the game. In Wild Hearts, you're through a hunt in like 20 to 30 minutes at the most. Whereas like early Monster Hunter fights can go for like half an hour very easily and extend past that if you're not amazing at the game. It's much easier to get a handle on. There's no huge tutorials that are necessarily for every weapon. It can help for some of them, but you can get a weapon, you can play with it pretty functionally immediately. And man, it just is nice that the menus are very good, I would say. I think that's a big improvement over a lot of Monster Hunter games, especially World and Rise, is that the menu is very understandable immediately, and the way they have like their weapon tree built out, to me, is so much easier to read than Monster Hunters. I think a lot of that is that it's a little bit simpler. There's not as many moving parts and as many different weapon types, just because there's less monsters in total. But it's got a really cool like metagame of you can like build out and inherit skills from weapons that you build off of, so you can like make a path through this kind of skill tree of weapon crafting. You get like a unique build, which is really cool. That's a very fun system that I think will get just better as I get further in the game. I think a lot of positives. I do think the big negative. Oh, go ahead, Wyatt.
I would like to point out the description of this game on Steam. It's one of the most beautifully written Steam descriptions for a game that I have ever heard. Allow me to recite it to you.
Yeah.
Master ancient tech to hunt down giant beasts. That's it. That's
it.
I mean, it doesn't try to hide what it is. The negatives, biggest one for me, aside from any technical thing right now, is the way that characters speak is infuriating.
No, you're another one
no.
too. No,
How do
I
they
thought you would
speak,
be on my
Ryan?
side.
How do they speak?
Ryan, when the character speaking English this entire time says "sugoi" in like the third cutscene, it made me laugh so hard.
It's so
I loved
bad.
it.
I was okay with it for that one character, but then it was everyone. Like, every single character that speaks does a sentence and then just puts one Japanese word in the middle or at the end, and it's bizarre.
What?
It's I think it's silly. It's because the game, you're not trying to take the game serious in the first place, so that's a big part of me not really caring all that much. But I do know a lot of people seem to be like genuinely like pissed off by it because they just think it's like annoying to hear. But I don't know. I think if you don't like it, you just turn the dialogue to Japanese or do what my one friend did and
Look, I might have to,
dialogue
because
Italian. And
Brett, I think the
do
reason
that.
it's annoying me is not the same reason it's annoying most people, because
Wh-
I've
so
I studied 4 years of Japanese in college, so I
Mhm.
understand most of what they're saying, and they literally are just saying the same thing again.
I'm
So-
not surprised.
So in the Japanese voice, in the Japanese dub, do they not say one random
I don't
English
know. I
word in a
imagine not.
sentence?
I
I
hope
imagine
so.
they don't.
That would be really good.
I also think a
Oh my
big part of it
God.
is that the quality of the accents of various characters is so wildly different that for the
Yeah.
first character you meet, her Japanese accent is fine, and the first male character you meet, they have a great accent. It just is really strange when other characters just swap to not great Japanese in the middle of a sentence.
And there's one lady who has like a English sounding accent, like a British accent, and there's one lady that just talks like regular old East Coast American. It's very strange, but I like it overall, kind of for a similar reason that I like the much more different accents and for the characters in Hi-Fi Rush, where it's just like I just don't want to hear the same people all the time.
Oh, I love
And you
Hi-Fi
know what?
Rushes.
Mm.
We're in a classic old timey Japan setting, even though it's heightened fantasy reality. So you know what? I'll get by with some crummy
Look,
Japanese.
I just
words
can't
thrown in
handle it when
everywhere.
someone tells you thank you and then
weeb
follows it
speak?
up with arigato gozaimashita. What is going on? I feel like I'm having a conniption. It's rough. For the actual problem, I think the biggest real issue the game has is just a lack of polish, because it's not in a franchise that has made 30 of these games.
Mm.
So there's little things that you'll notice are not great, like collision is kind of weird. There's areas of the environment that are destructible, but they don't destroy well. Like, you can
Aw.
fight monsters in a big staircase in one area, but if it even touches the staircase, the entire thing just vanishes.
Oh,
Which
Aw.
is really funny.
That's
There's a lot of
disappointing.
little things like that, and I'd say the issue that I currently have with combat is sometimes it just doesn't go great because the things are too big
Mhm.
for certain things. Especially if you're in melee, the camera just goes insane. It's not a very good camera for handling fights
Yeah.
with large things.
Because it's like the monsters sometimes are just too big, and it doesn't have the Bloodborne Dark Souls 3 problem where it's just like the thing you're fighting is so huge
Yeah.
that it's just out of frame and you can't see it even when you're locked onto it. It's like it's actually locking on too good, and when you're up against a wall and a giant 60-foot long
Oh.
pig is pressing up in your face, you're just gonna see the inside.
Yeah,
of the
there's a
pig.
reason that
Oh.
if you watch people play Monster Hunter for any amount of time, you'll notice that the lock-on does not actually lock on. When they hit the lock-on button, it just recenters the camera over the monster part that they're
Mhm.
looking at. So that way your camera is not whipping in random directions and getting stuck behind trees, because it's not often out of your control. Which I think just works a lot better when you're fighting large things like this, because you're just not getting the whiplash that happens when you are. So Yeah, I think that I haven't actually checked if that's an option in game. It might be, and if it is, I'm gonna switch to it.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think the camera just needs some work. It is.
A big part of that too, which is like one of the major negative points for me in terms of like a gameplay thing that probably isn't going to be fixed, as opposed to like bugs or
Yeah.
like things that are going to be fixed eventually. Some of the arenas they put you in suck, and partially that is because of the camera, because like I can't remember the name of the big sap raccoon with the
The
leaf
Sap
face.
Scourge, I think it's
The sap
called.
scourge, yeah.
Sap's
And
raccoon?
they
Oh, no.
the last room you fight him in for his final phase is like this small like cave thing, and there's just a bunch of like orange sap pillars dripping down from the ceiling, and the camera just doesn't know what to do, and the monster doesn't know what to do, and your weapons don't know what to do, because there's just not enough space to move around. And I'm using the big umbrella, which when you
Mhm.
just gonna blurb a bunch of things, and I'm sure someone who doesn't know what we're talking about is gonna go, "What?" But when you jump on the spring and do your regular attack, you shoot across the map with your umbrella pointing in a direction to do like a big stabby attack that does a lot of damage. But in small, crappy arenas like that, you just go past them because there's not enough space, and just your whole move set gets like limited because of dumb things like that. That was really frustrating in the
Yeah.
first area, especially because they really want to like push you into an area where there's a bunch of trees or like rock formations like that. I haven't had as much issue with the second area yet because it seems like a lot of it is more open. And I hope more of the game kind of goes in that direction, because those very claustrophobic arenas mixed with the camera, it makes it very frustrating to deal with things sometimes. Not to a point where it's like I'm gonna turn the game off, because obviously I'm still playing. But it's like I would be like, I wouldn't have gotten downed if I was able to see what was going on, and I can't see what is going on because there is a giant pillar of glowing orange sap in my face and now on the ground. And
Yeah.
now I'm embarrassed because somebody has to revive me now, and my God Gamer status has been taken away because of a bad arena. Okay, and not
Mhm.
my own skill. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a consistent problem. It's just the arenas don't feel as well thought out, which is a shame because a lot of them look really cool. Like the Sapped Cave looks cool, but then you play in it and you're like, oh, this isn't a great area to fight in. Especially because I've been gravitating towards the bow.
Oh
which is
God,
just,
yes, the range problems are going to be even worse for you.
Yeah,
Jeez.
you end up having to be pretty far back a lot of the time, and like you're using the stuff to jump in the air all the time because this bow has really good aerial attacks. Which just means your camera is constantly clipping into things and like getting all out of whack. At least with the bow, you typically aren't locked on, so you have a little bit more control to not get whipped around. But yeah, it's little things like that I think are pretty nitpicky in terms of what actually it feels like. It's just not an amazing feeling. Not to say it's bad, because I do think the game is overall very fun to play, and I feel like most people that get past the performance and bugs are enjoying it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a good time. I will report back when I'm further in. I think is the way we phrase this. All right, let's talk about Legend of Zelda. Because we got Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming up. The reason we're talking about this now instead of closer to the release is because there's started to be some leaks from the art book. And so we want to do the kind of wish list of what specifically Wyatt wants Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom to be,
I'm pulling up
while
my
we are
list behind the scenes
untainted
here.
from spoilers.
Yeah,
I think is the
will
idea.
definitely be affected by them.
Yep. So I'm gonna leave the floor open. What's some problems in Breath of the Wild that you want fixed? What you need to be better?
I've been replaying Breath of the Wild, and I have a list. I have a list. And the first thing that's on this list here is a better story because the story sucks. It sucks, and it's lame, and the voice acting sucks, and a lot of the writing sucks, It feels very detached from what you're doing because a lot of it's done in flashbacks, and anything that is in the present is usually just mentions of what happened 100 years ago, and it's a lot of repeated information, and it sucks. um, I I haven't really gotten a whole lot of whiffs that the story's going to be all that is not going to have that much more of a focus in Tears of the Kingdom than it did in Breath of the Wild, which makes me sad. And it's not like I don't understand why. It's a game that's focused on its sandbox and its adventure feeling, and so I understand that that story is going to take a bit of a backseat. But can we at least get something with some amount of coherent structure? Like, I'm not asking for very much, especially when we live in a world when a Puss in Boots sequel has great character
Yes.
work and
Yes.
a pretty good story. I think we can ask for a little bit more out of a $70 video game.
We can ask, but why? Best we're gonna get another hot fish person.
Oh, God.
But I
listen.
bet you there's gonna be 3. We gotta get 3. It's a rule of threes. You gotta have one for everybody.
And Ryan had mentioned this too, during that most recent Nintendo Direct, but like just characters that you talk to, and that aren't like NPCs, like characters that have stakes and purpose in the story, that you kind of see them grow and change as the story progresses.
I really don't
Again,
want
these are
Link to be the only character in this game.
yeah, you don't
Side
want
quests that
your
change the world
one
more.
you don't want your one character in your video game, in your epic adventure video game, to be the one that doesn't talk.
Yeah,
I'm
and I'm
just
gonna
saying.
add to this. I think the most controversial thing I want from this, from Tears of the Kingdom, is I kind of don't want the story to allow you to go fight the final boss immediately.
Ah.
Oh, interesting.
Or at least if it does, I would like there to be a significant like change if you do, right?
Ooh,
Because I
yeah,
think
how
I want there to be character progression and characters that aren't Link, but also Link, right? You want it to be a journey and have like a feeling like you've changed by the end of it, which I think every other Zelda game nails. That's one of the feelings that I think is so good about Twilight Princess and Wind Waker.
I mean, right before playing Breath of the Wild, before that, I had played Skyward Sword, which has I'm not going to say it's an incredible story, but it's very functional. There's characters that go through some kind of change. I'm looking at you, Bruce. Love you. I think Zelda is probably the most interesting iteration of Zelda that we've gotten. Because she has things to say and things to do, and to go from that, which had a fairly significant focus on its story, to Breath of the Wild, which just has like none, was such a jarring, like, I mean, a lot about going from Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild is like a jarring whiplash in a lot of different ways, but like especially with the story, you're like, what happened? Like, we had like a pretty okay story here last time.
Yeah.
These people kind of know what they're doing. What happened? Where did all the story go? It's gone.
hidden behind optional activities.
Pretty severe tonal whiplash, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of, feel like there's any progression. It doesn't help that the game just kind of ends as well, and then it does the thing that a lot of JRPGs do and just spits you back out right before the final boss, even though
I hate that.
It really wouldn't have mattered.
I hate that so
able
The
to
only
wander
thing-
around afterwards.
The only thing that it would have changed is that like a lot of the open world resets on those like blood moons or red moons or whatever they're called, right? Which is like part of Ganon's power, and they wouldn't have been able to do that. But you know what? If that had still happened afterwards,
Also, I'm gonna
wouldn't
say
have
throw out a
cared.
warning now. We might spoil Breath of the Wild in this discussion. Like,
Well,
I think I don't think
hang
there's a
on,
way to
with that-
avoid it. So
with that, you were
Be
talking about
aware.
the red moon bit. We see that red moons are back in Tears of the Kingdom, so it doesn't matter what Ganon does.
see, I think you could have
does,
totally
you
just
still-
let them continue as well, and just been like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is weird mystery. Why are the red moons still happening?" Sequel. Right?
Yeah, like they
And Matt
weren't gonna
Mercer's
make another
behind it.
Legend of Zelda game. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number one thing, and I just feel like it's the one thing that's really missing. Apart from some smaller things, but I think larger overarching stuff that there's that. The next thing, let's see. I'm just gonna go down the list here. Combat, specifically with combat. And now I said this during the
Actually,
Nintendo
before
Direct
you
when
go
we
to
streamed
directly
it.
to combat, Wyatt, I wanna garner some predictions from you
Okay.
about some things in Breath of the Wild. We're gonna revisit these once it's out.
Okay.
Tears of the Kingdom is out, and see how correct you specifically, but maybe all of us, depends on if we all answer or not.
God, I really want them to tone down durability.
We'll get to that.
we'll
We
get to
will
durability,
get to
yeah, for
that.
sure.
I
Um,
figured I just couldn't hold on to it anymore. Just like, it needs to be said.
Oh, I
That was
understand. I
a
understand.
huge issue.
Yep. So Wyatt, first I want to ask you,
Mhm.
is Zelda gonna be in percentage-wise more of this game than the last one?
Hmm.
I want her to be, but the trailers definitely make it seem like she's not.
Yeah, that's why I have this question, because
Which could be a
I would
misdirect.
like there to be.
Which could be a misdirect. It could be, but man, I
She
think
even
the
has
only
a cool outfit in the trailer. Like, come on.
yeah.
He has
I
a new
don't think it's happening.
hairdo.
I don't think it's happening.
Okay.
If it's gonna be more, it's gonna be like by 1 or 0.5% more. Like
Just
it's
a
really
tiny bit
not
more.
gonna. Yeah,
You
I don't
get
think so.
15 seconds.
Yeah,
not-
and I am
I'm
I'm
thinking-
including the memories in that as
Okay,
like
yeah,
time
then yeah.
Well, so
spent.
are there still going to be memories or stuff? Because Link's remembered
I
his
hope
past
not.
by the end of that. I'm
Yeah.
just like, you're going to shoehorn more
Replace it with something else.
weird backstory in
Replace
there.
it with something good.
So something that isn't happening 100 years in the past.
If you could access Ganon's memories, that'd be something else.
Hey, I could see that being what it is. I think that could be a legitimate thing because Ganon's voice acted by Matthew Mercer now.
Well, also leads into another small thing. Make Ganon more part of the story because he really there's no like presence from him at all other than the vision of Hyrule Castle until you actually get there and like the 4 bosses for the 4 dungeons, and that's it. I really want him to be more of a presence. If that's even who it is that we're fighting. We're not 100% sure. Whoever it is that we're fighting, whoever the big baddie is, I want him
It
to
better
be
be Matthew
more
Mercer's
present.
sexy Ganon. That's what it needs to be.
I really, really hope that Ganon is an ally in this one in some form.
Honestly,
Somehow.
that would be super cool. I would be so down.
Well,
for
there
that.
is okay. So there's a rabbit hole to go down with Ganon and Zelda lore because good old Nintendo put out the crazy Zelda timeline about a bunch of games that were not meant to have been related and then related them all. But
It's official
functionally,
according to Nintendo.
it does describe some stuff of like Ganon, as in just Ganon, the pig Ganon, evil big monstrosity Ganon, is literally just a like spirit of ruin. It is not a thing capable of dealing or thinking beyond ruining things. But Ganondorf, which is the human side, is just a person.
Well, Gerudo. technically.
Ganondorf, the Gerudo
the
pig.
Gerudo side is a person that has the power Triforce and has their own motives, right? He's
Well,
got his own deal.
In Ocarina, he was a thief that stole one of the Triforce. It was the Triforce of Power, I think, and then he became Ganon. And so whether
but you see that's
that was
incorrect because Skyward Sword is actually the starting point, Wyatt. So it's actually Skyward Sword that creates Ganon. You're just
that's not
incorrect.
true. No, that's not true. Ganon and Ganondorf is not in Skyward Sword.
No,
it's
the other
Demise.
Thing. Yeah, Demise.
Yeah.
But the Demise is Ganon. The Demise is confirmed Ganon from the Nintendo lore book. This is why we need to consult the Nintendo lore book because
Listen,
I know they did not think of it at the time,
No,
but now
not.
they have to because they've created this convoluted timeline.
I think these games work much better as the same story being told by different people in like throughout the ages and stories change as
the way that it was originally.
I think it works better that way. But do I also think that Nintendo did the best possible job that they could taking games that have nothing to do with each other and trying to mash them together? Yes, that doesn't mean it works, but I think they did the best job that they could.
The best they could have.
Given what they're working with.
I mean, how do you fit Four Swords Adventure into a timeline?
They don't even try with the CDI games. They're like, that's not part of Zelda. Let's just get those.
Those are someone's bad fireplace story tale.
Those are like nightmares that Zelda had while she was in her deep sleep in like Zelda 2 or something.
While she was either trapped in the crystal in Ocarina of
Uh,
Time, or
That's why everyone looks so scary in
or-
the animations. It's like they look so creepy in the cutscenes. It's because they were nightmares.
either that or she's having sleep-deprived hallucinations while she's fighting off Ganon for 100 years.
She ate a little too many stemella shrooms, and now she's seeing some crazy shit.
Certainly possible. All right. We've talked about the story. Wyatt, let's talk about combat before we
Right,
go further down this insane,
Alright.
unhinged rabbit hole.
That could make its own freaking video, but we're gonna move on. So here's the thing about combat. I'd mentioned this. I think we talked about this briefly during the Nintendo Direct. I don't actually want there to be this massive combat overhaul. I think all of the pieces are in place. I think they just need to make some little tweaks here and there, maybe one or two small additions. But I'm not really asking for anything too drastic because I kind of like what we have. Right? You got your basic kind of light combo attacks, and then you can hold it for like a special attack that depends on the type of weapon that you're holding. And then you can also jump and then like do like a slash attack and that kind of thing. I think it's all fine. I think the problem is specifically, I'm looking at my list here, perfect parries and shield bashes need to be more consistent because the timing on them feels like a dice roll. Like you never know if it's actually going to work or not. And when it does work, it's really cool, especially the the perfect dodges. You like do a backflip when someone like, thrusts a spear at you, they like slows down and then you zoom in and you do a bunch of attacks. Super cool. But the timing is so random, so inconsistent that you can't really rely on it at all because you just don't know if you're going to get it to work or not. It's like it's one of those things where you can really only do it consistently if you've played the game for like 1,000,000 hours and you know the math behind everything. But even then, it can still be difficult to predict. So I think that's the biggest thing.
I was gonna say I've had from like one of my biggest memories of playing Breath of the Wild is having such a hard time against the Guardians when there isn't really any environmental things in your way that you can use to block the lasers. Because I don't know, I couldn't parry for crap.
Yeah,
I'd actually say for me, it's the opposite of the Guardians were the thing that I could deal with because they have a tell. As long as you parry as soon as the beam starts, you will get it. You just need to look for like the first frame of the beam opening, and that will perfect parry every time. But so many of the other enemies have like random hitboxes, it seems like, or like hit frames where it's active for a parry to happen. So it's just super inconsistent. Which, I think if you are a speedrunner or something, you can absolutely get consistent with it, which shows that it is a system that was constructed okay, but I think for your average person, it's a little bit too restrictive.
Yeah.
In terms of timing. Especially dodges, because I think the dodges just tend to not feel great. That might be because the window for a perfect dodge is probably the right size, but there should be like a little window where it's also just a regular dodge and doesn't give you the rush, but lets you avoid damage.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, how I would tune that to be a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah. And maybe I would say the other thing is I hope they have more weapon types in this game that do some more wacky things. Because what we have are like things that are very functional but aren't super flashy, right? You got your spear, you got your big swords, you got your little swords. I think the most unique weapon in the entire game are the Lysel foes boomerangs, which is kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of like the boomerang from that Sokka has, where it's like it's a sword, you can hit a bunch of people with it, but you can also throw it using the right bumper, and then it comes back to you if you hit A. That's pretty cool. It's not the most practical thing in the world.
I would say it's highly impractical at almost every stage of the game.
But it's cool.
And
I just want more crazy, like even if they take some of the crazy weapons that they had in Age of Calamity, right? Like I remember some of the DLC weapons just being just super out there, weird looking stuff would be pretty cool.
I
would settle for just having like
weapons.
A couple different moves, just a little bit of animation difference to make things feel even a little bit different. Would be nice. Because I think you largely end up just having you have big sword, you have little sword, and that's it. Breath of the Wild in terms of like moveset.
And also little things like make and this kind of goes into loot stuff, which I want to save until a little bit later. But like take things like axes and hammers and then have them be like have weapon variants of them and ones that aren't just used for chopping trees and like smashing boulders and stuff. Because
Yeah.
I think there are people who want to use axes and hammers, and they're really used for tools and not so much for weapons.
Well, yeah, imagine
Which is
axes
kind of
and hammers
disappointing.
do like more damage to armor or armor
Yeah.
plating on
I like that
enemies.
we're just turning
like-
Tears of the Kingdom into Dark Souls. that's where we've landed. You know, for a sandbox, it might work.
Exactly.
All
All right.
right. Any
So
other combat
there's
notes?
that. Any other combat notes?
We'll go
I
into
think the-
durability next. I think.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
if durability isn't
right.
part of combat, then
So I've been thinking about this.
Okay, before we
here's
start
my-
durability, I gotta ask you.
Okay.
I gotta get your prediction on the board. Do we have an additional actual like weapon type with a different move set?
Does this count arrows? Because we saw the like.
I'm gonna
different
say this
arrow
needs to be
and-
unless it shoots differently. Like, does Link do a different animation set for
Oh, okay, I see.
a weapon type?
I'm gonna say yes because I hope to God that they do that. Because if they don't, that's gonna be a huge missed opportunity.
like a tech crossbow or something like that. Hopefully,
That's my biggest worry with this game is that the first one was received so well that they're just not gonna change the formula that much. That's my biggest
Yeah.
worry. I hope they do some bonkers stuff with it. All
Hopefully
right.
they'll-
Weapon durability. This is a big boy. This is the big one. Here's what I've been thinking about for a while. All right. For the early game, for like maybe the first half of the game, keep it exactly the same. Because I actually really like the way weapon durability works in the early game. Because every single thing you pick up, every single item you acquire is precious. And I think it's really thrilling when you have weapons, especially like really weak weapons early on, that you can find a lot of the time, but you don't have a lot of inventory slots. So like when one just explodes in your hand, it's actually really, really scary. I really, really like that. It's where you get to the late game is when I think it becomes an issue because there's no weapons that you really feel like that attached to in any way. It's like, okay, I found this giant electricity sword that I found on top of a mountain that'll break in 2 or 3 combat encounters, and then I can just go back to that mountain later on and just pick it up again. Like it's not
respawns.
Well, yeah, because weapons and stuff respawn. So if you know where to find them,
it's just not a satisfying thing to do.
So here's what I think they should do, and save this until the late game. But here's what I think they should do. You know the Terrytown quest, which is the quest where you build a town, right? And you have to help this guy build up this town, so you have to get different resources and stuff. And then at the end of that, you get the Hylian shield, which is like the classic Legend of Zelda shield. I want more quests like that, but you're building weapons. So you have an entire quest line where you're getting different parts of a weapon that you can also kind of branch off, and it's like, all right, here's like the base of a two-handed weapon, right? You like go on one quest and you get the handle for it. You go on another quest where you have to get items, where you have to get like certain resources and stuff for it. But you also have a choice on whether you want to spec it into a giant sword or a giant hammer or something like that. So it's a bunch of quests where you get weapons that you build over time, and it takes a while. You have to get all the resources, and they're permanent at that point. It's like once you finish that quest for that weapon, you get it forever. And it's a weapon that you've built that you feel happy about because it's one that you've put your own time into, and you feel like you have this kind of like relationship with it. And I feel like that's a really fun way for a really fun activity for the late game, is that you're working on those weapons that you really care about and that you want.
You think this would be a one and done per playthrough like choice? If like if you make the sword, you can only have it as the giant sword. You can't switch it to the axe or the hammer.
Yes, because then it kind of encourages multiple playthroughs of the game, and you can have it be this really cool thing. Like maybe you help a Gerudo swordsmith. Like maybe there's this ancient forge that's built into like the Elden Mountain or whatever, or a Death Mountain, right? And you have to help him like get the forge started up again, and then afterwards you go out on all these quests to get these different weapons and stuff like that. I just think something like that would be super cool. Because again, I like the durability for the early game, and then having weapons that you kind of have a relationship with and that you work to get in the late game is what would really sell the late game a lot more than the first game.
Yeah, I like that idea. I don't think I would want it to limit you to only be able to use one weapon type, because I feel like that kills the experimentation part of the game, which is so important
But-
to it
but,
feeling
I mean,
like it does.
But I mean, you could have multiple, like you could have one quest where, okay, this is like your one-handed sword quest. You have
Yeah,
one
I
that's
would want you to be
dedicated
able to
like,
do all of those different quests and not be like locked
Yeah.
out of doing one of them.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I meant.
At
But
the
in
same
terms
time,
of, like,
I feel like that is the largest ask that we've had so far,
Mhm.
and I don't see it
Oh.
happening.
That's the thing. When I made this list, I was like, I'm not restricting myself at all. This is just what I want, right? Like, sky's the limit in terms of my wish list. They're definitely not going to do that. But if Nintendo magically out of nowhere came to me and was like, Wyatt, we need your help, I'd be like, all right, this is what you do.
Yeah,
You're gonna get an email from Nintendo of America tonight.
I do think there
Because-
is the quick and easy fix in my mind is have like a weaker version of for every weapon type, like the
Mhm.
Master Sword, that is not going to break if you need to have a fallback weapon that you unlock at some point in the game later on,
Mhm.
and then just triple the durability of everything after the start. Like give me, or maybe make durability a thing that you
Maybe do an
upgrade
armor
with the
set.
Korok seed equivalent.
Have like an armor set that like increases all weapon durability or
Yeah, but then
something.
the
Just
problem is
address
you're only
it
going to
and-
use that armor set, right? I think
or something.
I
And
think
you know
putting
what?
it on a thing that is restrictive, like you would have to use a thing, we're gonna see people only using that thing. Because I think for the vast majority of people, weapon durability was the biggest.
Yeah.
I don't want to say problem, because I do think durability had a lot of really fun interactions, but it killed a lot of the exploration because you never really felt like you were rewarded for some certain things because it would break in one fight.
And you know what? I honestly would also say that this ask is not as big as you think it is because we kind of already have it. One of the DLC packs for Breath of the Wild was the Master Trials.
Yeah.
Which was essentially a bunch of like mini dungeons where they took away all your stuff and you had to, it was like its own mini form of progression. And when you finish one of the Master Trials, it permanently upgrades the Master Sword. So honestly, just do that, but with other weapons that you get like later in the game. They kind of already have that there, like to begin with. And so I think expanding on that and having it be part of the base game instead of DLC, I think would improve the late game quite a bit. And that also kind of goes into something else I was talking about, which is I want more from the crafting system. Because right now it's a cooking system. You get a bunch of stuff together, you can make food or you can craft elixirs. I want to be able to like mod weapons. I want to do more stuff because you get
But
a
not at the cooking
bunch of
pot.
materials.
None of the good stuff.
You throw your sword in the cooking pot. Oh my
You
god.
you you just poke a bunch of the roasted
Well,
vegetables
there is
on the
weapon
Master Sword. It's a new
crafting.
kebab.
There is weapon crafting in Breath of the Wild. There is the ancient weapon crafting that you can do at the ancient
Yeah, but
station.
I want
the
more.
old lady
I
stuck in the young
guess.
person's body.
Like that's just for ancient gear. I want to expand it to all weapons, right?
Yeah, I would love
I
like a
just think-
blacksmith character that you actually interact with, who like you help make weapons. That'd be fun.
Yeah, and like I said, have a whole quest where you help start up this forge where he allows you to like, where he helps you make weapons and stuff.
All right,
I think
got another
there's
set
so
of
many...
questions for you, Wyatt,
All right.
related to what we were just talking about.
Okay.
First of all, we obtained the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, assuming you did the full playthrough, which I think is going to be the assumption for starting Tears of the Kingdom, is that you're playing a Link who did the full playthrough. Do we have the Master Sword at the start of the game, or do we need to reacquire it?
Reacquire.
I think you're gonna lose it in the beginning cutscene.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
that's
just
the
find it in
second
the
question,
rubble
because I had a
somewhere.
feeling you were going to say we're going to need to reacquire it. My second question, does the game explain how we don't have the Master Sword? In either a
That'd be nice
cutscene or something, or do we just not have it?
I think I hope we have to find it in the rubble of like wherever there's a cave-in or something that was hinted to in the like cutscene and early reveals.
I know what you hope, but what do
if-
you think will happen?
If the worst possible scenario is, oh, Link put it back in the stone for some reason. What?
He put it in a new.
Why would
stone.
he ever do that?
He found a new rock. He'll never need it again.
I mean, to give Nintendo a bit of credit here, they do explain why the Master Sword was there in Breath of the Wild. So it's not too much of an assumption to assume that they would do it again. But this is Nintendo, so
But I'm
truly
wondering, like,
do not
do we
know.
see the Master Sword at the start of the game, or do we just not see it and then not have it?
Oh,
Is it
I
treated as a
we'll see it.
gameplay thing or part of the story?
I think we'll see it at the beginning of the game. You'll have to reacquire it.
Okay,
And
but we will see how you lose it, or it will explain why you don't have it.
yes,
Oh
I think
god,
so.
unless the Master Sword is their answer to durability and it's like the one base weapon you have and it's severely
No, they
limited
wouldn't
in
do
its
that.
power for some
They-
reason.
they
That
wouldn't
would be
do that.
so ridiculous. That can't be the case.
It would go
I
against
hope it's not, but I
it would
don't
go
know.
against their whole like open-ended design so much. I can't see it.
Yeah.
I can't see that happening. Nintendo, I'm putting a lot of faith in you. All right, listen.
Don't worry,
More than I
Wyatt, we
probably
will let
should.
you down. Go hug
Um,
the fried shrimp with Jeff Keighley's kicks.
Here's an issue that I think bugged people more than durability, and that's the rain. Let's talk about the rain
While climbing?
and how stupid it is.
While climbing or while wearing metal armor? Or just everything about it?
Just climbing, full stop. Because so much of the game is about just learning how the world works and gaining gear in order to traverse it better. But the one thing that never changes is the rain.
It did rain a lot in my
It
playthrough.
it completely just removes any kind of like large scale climbing. No matter what you do in the game, that never changes. And honestly, the quickest fix is if they're gonna have the climbing like gear set again or something similar to it, just have it ignore rain and just be able to climb in the rain. There needs to be some sort of item that allows you to climb during the rain, and I don't understand why that was a decision that was never made. Because it's the one thing where like the game does a really good job at making you you gradually feeling more powerful, not just through the gear that you pick up, but also how you can manipulate the sandbox to whatever you need it to. But that's the one thing where you always feel helpless, which can be kind of interesting, but with how often it is and how in the way that the game is designed, I just think it's more of a detriment than anything else.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm curious what they're gonna do with rain as well. I don't see them getting rid of it because I feel like that's an integral part of preserving the sandbox.
Weather will remain.
But I could see this being a game that introduces some wacky way to modify weather as part of the sandbox.
Interesting.
I mean,
Like,
you
that
are
would be my
able to
bet
make
for
a
a
flying
solution.
machine. So
I feel like there's like a weather shrine or something.
Or
that
a
we're gonna be
musical
able to
instrument.
use. Or an instrument. Would love a musical
bring back the
instrument.
ocarina, please.
Yep. Or the what's the thing called in Wind Waker? Is it literally just called the Wind Waker, like the
Yeah.
the wand? Yeah.
There's also the harp from Skyward Sword.
From Skyward
A lot of
Sword.
musical
Yep.
instruments in
It's
The
a-
Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I don't want it to be removed. I just want it to be addressed and have it be an obstacle that you can eventually overcome. Because I think as is, it's just far too frustrating and far too common. Here's my next thing. This one I got from, I don't know if anyone here watches Arlo, who primarily
absolutely.
covers.
All right, before you get Arlo, I've got a few
okay.
rapid fire questions for you, Wyatt, to
Okay.
predict.
All right, let's
These are
go.
ones that don't necessarily fit in any one area. How many fully voice acted cutscenes are we gonna have?
Oh, for God's sake! Do you want like a number?
I want a number. I want a number.
Do you know? Well, as a baseline, do you have on hand the number that were in the first game?
I can estimate because memories in Breath of the Wild, there were 18 of them, and they all had a cutscene associated, and there was like one more at the end. There's one at the start, and there's like another ending cutscene.
So 20.
So let's say like
about 21, give or take.
Yeah.
I assume there's a few more snuck in there somewhere, but I don't know if they're fully voice acted aside from that.
Oh man. We have a voiced villain this time, which I think
implies
yeah.
Voice
which
acting
I think
is more present.
will add the amount of like voice acting and cutscenes. But it really depends on if they have a lot of like side characters, if the champions will be relevant to the story in any way, shape, or form. Probably not. I'm gonna say a little bit more, but like marginally, like not that much more. It's not what I
Okay.
want, it's what I'm expecting.
I mean, 21 is not a bad number, though. That's a pretty good number for a game that doesn't have cutscene-based storytelling most of the time. I could see if we get 21
It's just there's
voice-acted
nothing in them.
cutscenes that are not like in the
the wild
past.
find them.
by
Like, not
100 years.
terrible, completely detached from
So
what's
I'll put that
going
in
on.
as there will be more than 21 actual cutscenes.
Yeah.
All right. Going
alright,
hand in hand with that, Wyatt,
yes.
is the game fully voice acted? Not necessarily including Link.
No.
You're gonna get a lot
easy
of
answer, I think.
I think
you're
the game
gonna
is
get
too
a lot
big.
of
Yeah, I think the game is too big,
Babanada.
and I think Nintendo doesn't give a shit enough about story to do it.
Yeah,
Which,
I'm
you know
with you.
what?
I don't care either way.
I'm assuming this game is going to be the same size, if not bigger, and there's probably going to be. I don't blame them, to be clear.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big game, and all the little NPCs that just dish out like little rumors or hints or something, that's fine. I'm not expecting a fully voice. It's fine.
Here's something I forget. Did they have just no voice at all and they had the text box? Or did they do a little bit of an Animal Crossing?
I think they would
for the
say
smaller-
like there's like a little sound, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
like if you're talking to Beetle at any of the
Oh yeah, it's the
he's like no. Or
he has like the one word.
yeah.
Oh.
It's a lot less scary than it was in Skyward Sword. If you talk to Beetle in Skyward Sword, you like walk up into his little house and he's like, "Oh." It's
And
really
then if you try to
creepy.
steal, he pulls a lever and if you try to steal or you don't buy anything, he
You
pulls a
don't buy
lever and just
anything.
drops you from the
If you
store.
don't buy anything, he pulls a lever and you fall straight out of his house. It's
All right.
awesome.
Great, Wyatt. I've got another question for you
yeah,
along these lines. This is a one that I think you're gonna have some trouble with, which is how many words is the whole script?
Are we talking main
Because-
story or everything?
Everything, because I'm talking when people release articles saying there are 50,000, 500,000 words in Cyberpunk 2077. What is that number gonna be
700.
for Breath of the Wild?
700.
700 entire words in the whole game.
Yes.
And this varies wildly between games. Like there are
Yeah.
games with a very small number and games with a very large number.
Like they're like just in Skyward Sword's opening, there's probably more lines of dialogue than like the first half of Breath of the Wild.
And notably, this doesn't. I'm not counting just voice acting here. So whole script.
Mhm.
How many
my God.
words are in the script of this game?
That's a tough one. Ah man. I'm gonna say 3,000.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just feels right to me.
I feel like you're incredibly lowballing there. We'll see how close that gets. Does Link say any words?
No. I think, I think that's one of those. And here's why I'm so confident with that is because Breath of the Wild, its development was helmed by a lot of like younger employees, right? And specifically, they wanted to hear from those younger employees, people who were completely okay with just abandoning the Zelda structure entirely. And that's one thing that they didn't change. I feel like that is like an absolute no-no.
So,
Link cannot talk.
You know the thing that I
The
would
selective
normally
mute
agree
who
with
loves
that,
to eat.
but there's one thing that bothers me incessantly about Breath of the Wild, which is that outside of cutscenes, Link does talk.
He does.
A lot, all the time.
Yeah.
But then in cutscenes, he is inexplicably mute.
And when I say talk,
I don't know about the talk all that. He says yes and no.
Oh no,
No,
it's like
he has full lines. Because I literally, an hour before this podcast, started up a new playthrough of Breath of the Wild. And your first dialogue option is you meet Old King Rome. And he goes, "What are you doing with that? With the torch?" And you're like, "I'm going to start fires," is one of the options. So he says full sentences in the game.
Hang on.
I'm
Here's
assuming-
an
and so
important
I'm-
question.
I'm assuming
Here's an
you-
important question.
Okay.
Does he actually say that, Or is this a case of the Fallout 4-esque dialogue?
How does anyone
where
know what he means?
you can gesture with a torch at the ground?
Well, he does say that because Rome says that's unsettling immediately afterwards. So he's clearly replying to the word that you just said.
You can do actions that imply you won't like starting fires.
No,
Alex,
that's
this is a weird hill to
absolutely
die
not
on.
what's happening.
This is a weird hill to
Link
die
said
on.
the sentence, "I'm going to start fires with it," and then
assuming
Rome
when
said, "That's unsettling that you're going to start fires with it."
And so when you asked that question, I'm assuming you meant like spoken word
Yeah, I mean
from
spoken.
a voice
I don't
actor.
mean
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's happening. If it does, I'd probably like shit my pants, but it's not gonna happen.
I would love for there to be like one sentence of spoken dialogue. The very end,
Yeah,
and especially for it to be like Travis
I'm
Willingham or
imagining-
someone with an incredibly
Well,
deep
My
voice.
God.
You know what? I'm imagining if it does
excuse me,
happen.
princess.
I'm imagining if it does happen, it's gonna fall completely flat. Like, remember when in Destiny 2 fucking Forsaken, your character says one sentence and it's like, oh my god, your guardian hasn't spoken a word since like the first game or whatever.
I
And it's
hard
just, like,
disagree that fell
completely
flat.
fall.
I hard
Didn't do
disagree
anything
that
for
that fell
me.
flat. I thought
You're
that
wrong.
hit
Didn't do anything
very
for
well.
me. No.
I think you were
'cause you have a
already
hate
so
hard-on for
detached
Destiny 2.
from Destiny 2
Damn
that you
right you
didn't
do.
care. Would be my guess for that.
Deserved.
you do have to agree that there is at least a 90% chance that it will fall flat or that people will not like it. 'Cause,
Oh,
like,
in
it's like
Tears of the Kingdom, absolutely.
it's like when they made like Pikachu say
100%.
words in the one like newer Pokemon movie, and everyone's like,
Hey, what?
"What?" Pikachu says like, "I love you, Ash" or something, and
It's
like
just
everyone's like,
weird.
"That's really
One of the
strange."
one of the
You didn't have
only,
to
like-
change
That's
that.
horrifying.
One of the
Yeah.
only like classic video game characters that's gotten away with this is Jack, because he didn't say a word in the first game, and then he started talking in the second game. But that's because it wasn't like an
Jack and
established.
Daxter Jack?
Yeah, that's because it wasn't an established franchise like it is now, and because the second game changed so many things. Anyways, it was able to get away with it because it was only the second entry. So
Yeah.
that's like one of the only ones that's gotten away with it.
Yeah, I will
But
say
yeah.
if it happens, I hope that it is good and not bad. You know, I hope it isn't a thing that, and I don't believe they're going to do it, but I could see it happening because I think it has been a thing that's been brought up more and more of there's a weird disconnect now between story Link and Link in the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird thing to keep going with, especially you can kind of get away with it in Breath of the Wild because it was all in the past. But now that it's current, I think it would feel weird if you are interacting with characters and then just not speaking.
Yeah, I understand why they don't have Link talk, but it's always been this weird thing because like it's not even just in Breath of the Wild. Like so many Zelda games, it's like he won't say a word in like a cutscene or something, but he has plenty of things to say. You can pick different, dialogue options. They don't mean anything, but it's there. So it's always been a little strange as the series has gone on and has tried to focus more on its story. The whole silent protagonist thing kind of is more and more awkward as it goes.
All right, what's
Yeah.
your next wish list item?
Better boss fights, and that kind of comes in two different waves. I think.
Yeah, I'm with
I
you.
think primarily the movesets need to be more interesting. I remember the first playthrough I did, I fought Water Blight Ganon for the first time, and I remember it being really hard. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And then I realized in the second playthrough, if you just have enough bomb arrows and spam them with bomb arrows, it's like the most pathetic thing in the world. I get that they want to keep their like open-ended level design, but I think bosses is one thing where you can break the rules just a bit to make sure you have like a good boss fight. And I
Especially
think the
because
other
Zelda
problem
is known for doing the like puzzle style boss fights so well.
Yeah. And I think the other problem is that boss fights don't scale with you at all, which I get that it's not like a super stat heavy game, which honestly though, now that I think about it, isn't even true. All of the damage in the game is calculated by half hearts, right? So like I feel like there's a lot of things you could do behind the scenes in order to scale at least boss like health and damage along with the player as he goes along. Because like if you wait too long to go to like fight Ganon or fight any of like the Blight Ganons, they're pathetic. Like
It's
they don't
also
stand a
unfortunate
chance.
that if you do the whole game and then go fight Ganon, he's such a pushover
Yeah.
that you're like, I could have beaten this instantly.
Especially if you have the Guardian shield that just like you don't even have to do your timing properly. It just bounces Guardian lasers back, like you don't even have to do anything. He's such a pushover.
Yeah, which
And
is I like the idea that it's easier if you did all the things, but not that much easier.
no, it's ridiculous. And so I think like I mean the simplest thing is just to have them scale with the player, but I think they had cool ideas for boss like set pieces, but they didn't really develop it that much. Like
I don't actually think they need to
specifically-
scale with the players, but I feel like you could use some set piece things to retain difficulty,
Mhm.
even if like damage wise you're outpacing them. Because I feel like that's how most other Zelda games work. Is
They tried to do that, but a lot of the times it just didn't really affect the fight that much. Like again, going back to Water Blight Ganon, there's a
Yeah.
cool moment where a lot of its moves are electricity based, right? And so there's a cool moment where the floor becomes water and you have to jump around on certain platforms, which is a great idea. So it's like, oh, you have to use like Cryonis to like create different platforms to jump
Yeah.
around. But again, it's just you spam them with bomb arrows and it doesn't matter. You can do there's so many ways to just cheese the boss fight, and it's okay to kind of have like a more structured boss fight. Take away the open-ended part of it just a little bit to make sure that the boss fight retains
especially
some
because
kind
they have
of
world boss
difficulty.
fights like the Lionels that are cheesable.
Yeah,
Like outside of it, so
they're still more
I think
difficult.
you already have things for people to throw their stuff at and feel satisfied about. It maybe not the main story bosses, or at least
Yeah.
not all of them. All right, well, you talked about that. I am curious, Wyatt. Does the hook shot return?
That's on my list. I want the hook shot. The hook shot. Oh my god! In Breath of the Wild sandbox,
So
would be
good.
so good.
Maybe that's your
Imagine
solution to the rain
using,
problem too. Is you
like-
can climb
Yeah.
using the hook shot past a certain point.
Like
I
using the
mean-
glider, using hovering machines, going out of a glide, using the hook shot. Oh, starting a glide with the hook shot.
Some might argue that it's kind of redundant if you have other forms, like especially if they bring back Rivali's Gale, which just breaks so much of the game. But like, it's still fun. It's still a grappling hook in a video game, and I'm gonna use it because
Grappling
it's a
hooks
grappling
make video
hook.
games better.
Especially if I would love if
Yeah.
it behaves like a physics grappling hook.
Yeah.
In terms of like not
Ooh.
necessarily to get around and like I don't
And can
say-
bring
mean
items towards you.
Spider-Manning.
If they're
I
like,
mean like pivoting. Like I would love if there are areas designed where you could like shoot it into a floating island above you and then like swing to the next island.
Or even pulling
Ooh.
objects around. Like, here's
Yeah.
the thing: if you want
Use it
like
as
a
a
base,
puzzle tool.
if you want a good like framework of how to use the hook shot in this kind of, honestly, Halo Infinite used the grapple shot
example.
in its open world really, really well, and I think it would fit Breath of the Wild or like Tears of the Kingdom sandbox really, really well. I don't think it's gonna be there.
oh,
I
So
really
your
want
official
it to be.
prediction on this is no, but you really want it to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Desperately. Because it is a fact. You put a grappling hook in your video game and it's just a better video game. I think most
I could see
people
that
can
also
agree
being
with
DLC. I feel like that's a fun like DLC.
Kind of like what
item.
they did with the bike.
Yeah, with the motorcycle. Like people
Mhm.
played the game without it, so they got the full experience. Now we can break it a little bit. We can add some stuff that doesn't necessarily
Which brings me to
adhere
another
to
thing.
normal game stuff.
Which brings me to another thing about armor. So the knight's armor that you get, once it's like fully upgraded, you're like unstoppable, because it negates so much damage that like most enemies, they hit you if you're fully decked out in the knight's armor, does like half heart to you or like quarter heart.
Is that the ancient armor, like the ancient weapons? The knight's
No,
armor,
it's literally
or-
just like
The Hylian
plate
knight
mail. Yeah. And I take back what I said before. It's damage is calculated in quarter hearts, I think, not half hearts.
Yeah.
Because but yeah, like if you're fully decked out, fully upgraded and everything, like they can't touch you. Like even like Lionels and like Hinoxes and stuff like tickle you once it's fully upgraded. So I think that needs to be tweaked a little bit. Either that or it's really hard to get the armor to that point, or it takes a long time to get to that point. I also think that there's some armor that have cool effects, but are very specific use cases. Like the Zora armor is cool because you can go up waterfalls, but like outside of that, it's not really used for a whole lot unless you're going to be doing a lot of swimming, which the game doesn't really have a whole lot of like moments where you're doing a lot of swimming that you can't just fly over or something.
Yeah.
So it's a cool idea, but I think the armor needs to be a bit more universal than that, because like some of the armor is very specific, and in that one specific scenario, yeah, it's great, but it needs to be applicable to more than just one specific. It's why I always go back to like the Hylian armor or something else, or like the climbing armor, because there's a lot of use cases for that, and you're going to be using it a lot. But the Zora armor is like, I'm going to put it on for this one moment, and then I'm going to immediately take it off because it has no other uses outside of that.
I think what I stayed on most was the Sheikah stealth armor.
Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of stealth, which is another thing on my list is I want the stealth to be a bit more developed because it's a little undercooked. But I mean, I mostly just because I really like the look of like the Hylian tunic, not his like blue champion one, but the one you get in Kakariko Village. I just love that look, and so I wore that
with
a
the
lot.
shoulder and like the pec pad. Yeah,
looks so
that
good.
was cool.
And now in Tears of the Kingdom they have like his blue like champion tunic with that like shoulder polish. Oh, it looks so good. Anyway, but yeah, I think I want more armor sets with more like. I don't want them to be more bland and like general, but like have them be more use cases than very specific things. Because some of them I just didn't wear that much. Let's see. What else do we got here?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I would also love a transmog. I think this is a game that could use a transmog system.
Yep, I agree.
Maybe it's a fun
100%.
unlockable at some point.
In Breath of the Wild, the only thing we had was the armored die, right?
Yeah, you could die, but there's some armor. I feel like you have a lot of really cool looking pieces here, but making fun outfits meant you would be using like one piece from 4 different sets. So you were never really getting a lot of bonuses. So I think it would be nice to just have a transmog. I don't know that will be in the game because look, Nintendo makes great games, but they often make games that are stuck in the past for quality of life stuff. So I don't expect many of those things to exist.
Does not have a fashion end game in their games,
despite them being perfectly capable of it.
So here was something I had mentioned Arlo before, who if you don't watch his content, he makes great like usually Nintendo based content. Love him. And one thing that he was talking about that I put on my wish list here because I very much agree is they kind of did this in Age of Calamity a little bit, but I want them to expand on it here. I want quests where you're like rebuilding Hyrule, right? Where like, oh, this town was like, there's so many ruins in Breath of the Wild, so many like just destroyed villages and castles and stuff. How cool would it be to go back to those places and have whole quests, kind of like the Terrytown quest, where you're like providing resources. It's a good use of all these things that you're picking up around the world, and you're like providing resources to all these different places to help rebuild Hyrule after 100 years, right? Because they did that a little bit in Age of Calamity, and it was some of my favorite stuff because it felt like you were like engaging with the world a bit more, and you were helping the people, which is kind of what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. That's another one of those like far out there, probably not going to happen type things, but I just feel like it would act as a great thing for a sequel, where it's like, all right, the world has been destroyed for 100 years. Now we have a sequel to that where a lot of it is about building back up again, rebuilding society. And as you do that, maybe you have more people walking around because it's safer to walk around the open world and stuff. I don't know. He mentioned that, and I put it down here because the Terrytown quest was cool, and I wanted more stuff like it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also like if this seems to be set some amount of time after Breath of the Wild, a couple months or something, because different hairstyles, different looks, characters have clearly done some things. So I would love to see just some actual life in the world and not it be destroyed the whole time until it gets ripped up. Like, I think there's a lot of fun you could do with having more character outside of just like stables around the world.
And like a few cities here and there, kind of.
Because there's like villages in Breath of the Wild, but they don't tend to have things for you to do. And I would love to see some like mini game or some other things that you can do in the towns.
Oh, here's a little thing. Hey, Nintendo, have you ever heard of something called multiple save files? Oh, you have, because almost every other Zelda game has had multiple save files.
Yeah, I just wiped my save to play Breath of the Wild again. I'm like, I would love to not have to do that.
And I didn't, because I didn't want to delete that first save because it means a lot to me. So I set up a whole new like profile on my Switch to do that.
Yeah.
which is a solution. And I was a little worried that like all the DLC didn't carry over, but it does, which is nice. But it's like, why do I have to do this at all? This feels like such an unnecessary, just multiple save files. Why? I don't understand why this is like.
Yeah.
It was 2017, no excuse, and now it's 2023, no excuse. It's such a weird little thing. Here's something.
Excuses,
So unless
you'll buy it anyway.
I know. Here's one thing. Unless I'm wrong, I don't think your various like food effects stack on each other. Because it tells you if you eat like food that gives you more heat resistance or something, it tells you up in the corner. But then if you're in a combat encounter and you want to add like temporary hearts, right? You eat a different piece of food, the heat stuff goes away and is replaced by like some other effect. But I don't think they stack.
I don't believe they do. You would have to make food that has both the heat resistance and the heart thing.
Which is kind of annoying. And I don't understand why that limit.
I feel like that's to avoid the Skyrim thing of just stuffing your face with food every fight to become unkillable.
But that's what people do anyways.
But it mitigates it a little bit. I do think I kind of prefer having the choice of like you have to actually make a decision what effects you want.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, because armor tends to fill that role. If you decide you want to be able to eat the busted food and be in the hot zone, you can wear the hot armor. That means you don't take the hot damage.
But it also goes against like, oh, this game is all open-ended and you can tackle things however you like. But we're going to put in these weird limitations from time to time. I just feel like it kind of goes against.
I don't feel like that's limiting. I think that's more you need to have a plan to get into an area by either using your food item or using an armor set. You can't like just kind of cheese it and do whatever. So that kind of encourages the exploration because you want to have the different things. But I can see that.
What else I have here? The other big thing is we only get 4 traditional style Zelda dungeons in the entire game, and they're not even that long.
They're also not really traditional Zelda style dungeons. I would say we have one traditional Zelda style dungeon.
The closest that we get to Zelda style dungeons that aren't shrines, right? And I think I want more of them. We do have
the Iga clan hideout. I think was to me the most like visually fun thing in the game because it felt like a dungeon. Not to say I love the gameplay there, but
no, I did not.
I think in terms of being a traditional Zelda style dungeon, that's the closest we really got. I just want to see
the banana mechanic.
Some different things.
But even with that one, you can break it in 2 seconds. I got so frustrated with it that I just cheesed the whole thing and didn't even do it properly, and I still got by in like half the time. Which I just
want to see not old dirty Shiko everywhere.
Well, that leads me to another discussion that people have had online, and I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Was it Matthew Matosis? Someone had suggested this, and it's been a big discussion online ever since. All of the shrines, all of the shrine dungeons are visually exactly the same, right? And so what some people are arguing is that no matter what shrine you go to, there's a certain order at which you experience the shrines. The locations are all in different places, but the actual dungeon that you go down into, the like mini dungeon that you go down into, it's always in the same order, so you're experiencing things in the correct order. And I'm wondering what you guys think.
I would run with that a little bit. I like the idea. I don't know that it would. Feel like there's problems with it that I can't come up with right now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I like the idea at first glance, but I think there is probably some weird problems that would arise from it. Of like maybe you don't have the fun map presence of being able to kind of stumble upon different areas. So I think I would mix it up a little bit and be like, there are 4 sets. And each one of them has a different visual theme. So you get a different set of visuals for each of these like 4 sets. And every time you hit one of the shrines for that set of things, it goes in like a line, right? So you're getting them in progress. I feel like that would be a good middle ground of there being some different things to do, but also having progression.
Because for me, some of the shrines were very much themed around the area that they were in, which is what made the shrine cool. And when you do that like order, that cool theming kind of goes away, which maybe isn't a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but I think to me that would be a pretty important thing because sometimes the act of finding the shrine is interesting in and of itself, and then the shrine being themed after the quest that you just went on to get it. Like having it be the same theme is really interesting.
Yeah,
Which
I really
feel
just
like
want
you
some
would
visual
use that.
differences. Like I want
Yes.
something to look as impressive as the rest of the game does.
Yeah. I mean, initially it's nice contrast where like you have this giant open world with all this lush wildlife and then the dungeons are these like mechanical. It's interesting at first, and then you get like 20, 30 hours
And then
into
you
the
do
game, you're like, all right, I need
120 of them.
yeah. You're like, I need something else. I need something different. Also different music.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. The music in general kind of
More. Give me music.
yeah. I think the guy jamming out on the piano works really well for certain things. I really like the like when Link stumbles across a memory and there's this really nice like piano theme that plays. I think that was really nice. Or like when you're on your horse and it's just little it's nice. But then when you're fighting a giant like eight-legged robot spider that shoots lasers at you, I want something a little bit more than a guy jamming out on a piano going do 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 do. It's like, can this be a little bit scarier than just some dude on a piano just doing the same riff for like 10 minutes? I don't know.
Or just have music. Please have some amount of music.
And
Breath
not
of the
like
Wild's
your
soundtrack is great, but it's barely present.
yeah. I like the low-key stuff for when you're just walking around and taking in the world. It works perfectly there. But for like
But I swear, if I hear
action-
bump bump bada bump bump bada again one more time, I'm gonna lose it.
or in a shrine, you hear da 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 da. It's like I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I want more music. Like you said, the theme that they had for like the Breath of the Wild story trailer, that like rendition of the Zelda theme
That
was
doesn't
awesome.
play in the game ever.
Doesn't play in the game. The only thing
Despite
that we
being
do
the
get,
single greatest piece of music that
yeah.
Zelda has ever had.
The one that we do get that's more than piano is when you're in the in Hyrule Castle, which I guess is also kind of a Zelda dungeon almost. It has its own map and everything. But that's it. And it's not I don't know. I just think going all piano was kind of a mistake in some areas. I know they added an update that had some horse customization, but I'd like them to expand on that because I love me some horse customization. If you want an example of good horse customization, look at Red Dead Redemption 2. It does it very, very well. What else have I got on here? I think that's most of it. I think the thing I want to stress mostly is just better story, address durability and rain. I want more crafting stuff as well. I think that's the last one. It's just
All right.
more excuses to use the 500, the stack of 500 or 600 choo-choo jelly that I've been carrying around for so long.
That is a sensible thing to request, I think.
Yeah.
All right. I have one more dreaded question for you, Wyatt.
Oh dear God.
This one I think is going to hurt you in the soul.
Mhm.
Oh no.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to ease you into it with a simpler question. One from
Okay.
a better time, which is the trailer that revealed that we have vehicles in the game and vehicle
Right.
customization. Are there going to be time trials?
I can see that. I can see like one or two time trials as a puzzle.
And I mean in any form. It doesn't have to be like Ubisofty time trials. I mean,
Yeah.
is there a time trial?
Well, there are time trials in Breath of the Wild already. Some of the Korok challenges are time
But I
trials.
mean,
essentially.
movement based specifically with a vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Those
Alright.
aren't my favorite challenges in the world, to be honest. They kind of get on my nerves sometimes. But probably I could see them doing like a Korok style thing where you got to drive your giant nuts
Collect
and
your
bolts
tears of
vehicle
the
around.
kingdom. All right. Well, speaking of
collectible in the game, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
Speaking of Wyatt's tears, does Ubisoft influence the UI of Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, at all?
Worse, Forspoken does.
Truly a nightmare.
It's all
No.
fish-eyed.
I think
mean, like, do we
Nintendo.
have objective markers appearing on the map? Does Nintendo take the wrong lessons from AAA game development?
I think Nintendo develops in their own, oftentimes infuriating little bubble that they staunchly refuse to look outside of. That I think they'll just stick to their guns in terms of the UI, because I actually quite like the way that the inventory works and all that in Breath of the Wild. I think they did a pretty good job of it overall. So I don't think I would want too many. Maybe some more organizational systems for like the
I'm not asking if
inventory.
you want it. I'm asking, is it
No,
there?
yeah.
Uh,
No, I'm.
No. All right.
I'm being really hopeful and saying no.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I honestly don't think that'll happen. But I would be so upset if I get in the game and there is a breadcrumb trail showing me how to get to the next objective.
oh.
I
God.
I don't think that happens in any universe. I feel like it's not a thing that they touch with a 20-foot pole, but it's possible. All right. Well, that's
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. In the bag. We've put our predictions down. We'll probably revisit this game again before it comes out. Once we have more information, if we get more information. That's it.
I really predicted a lot there.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, Brett. You know what, Brett? I do have a question for you. Are there Koroks?
Probably.
Well, I did. I mean, part of the reason I wanted to do this discussion, and I'm sorry, I completely forgot because I got lost in my own little world over here. Brett, as someone who has tried to get into this game many times and could not stick with it, what would you want out of a Breath of the Wild sequel?
No.
Oh.
I don't think they could do anything. I think Zelda in one installment has strayed so much from what I enjoyed about the Zelda games that it can't be a Breath of the Wild sequel. It would have to be a different
new Zelda
thing.
game.
Yeah. Because I just don't like the direction at all. And I'm gonna be honest with you, after this discussion we just had, like the 2% of excitement that I did have was like murdered.
Are you that negative on the prospects?
The good thing about it is that in 6 days out of the week I don't have to care, but it's Sunday and it's podcast day, so we're talking about Breath of the Wild.
I did see your eyes just glaze over during most of that discussion. I'm not blaming you for it. I don't blame you at all, to be clear.
Because I'm not going to sit here and just be a downer the whole time, because it's not the point of the discussion. But I'm playing Twilight Princess right now certainly isn't helping, because that game does a lot of things that are very good that we're not going to see again until indie devs get past making Link to the Past and get to making Ocarina of Time, which is fine, because I do love getting some good Link to the Past.
But we've had enough
someday.
All right, Brett. Well, you and your
progress.
negativity have created a whole new list for me to add onto here. So we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going with the one to extend your pain. Because
God.
I have added a list to this that is Brett's Debbie Downer dirty dirt things that need to go.
I said almost
God.
nothing.
So I need you to list off what needs to change for you to like Breath of the Wild.
We're sitting here and we're making all these loops and hoops.
Be as downer as you want to.
No,
Brett.
I am. We're making up all these pretend reasons that should we give the player what should the rank up system for going through the challenges, should it be giving them an XP boost? No, that sucks. You're putting a band-aid on the problem. Remove them. Remove the weapon durability. There's no reason to have it. It sucks. Nobody likes it. Get rid of it. It's bad. Doesn't fit in the Zelda game. It didn't fit in Dark Souls, and that's the thing that made that a thing to consider for that kind of game.
Let's not blame purely Breath of the Wild for this, though, because it is not the only Zelda game to have weapon durability.
Oh, Skyward Sword, which a lot of people also really like and is a favorite of thousands.
There's been a lot of people rediscovering their love for Skyward Sword.
I know. And that's how a lot of things go, but there's also a reason that so many people bounced off of it in the first place. Yeah. That's the other half.
I agree.
Get rid of weapon durability because the things
Yeah.
you would gain from getting rid of it would be a lot better than the things you gain from keeping it and making mechanics around it.
Mhm.
I make the world full of things. You guys pretty much said like full of like actual populated places that give you reasons to go there, and a story to make you go to those places. Because open worlds, I get that part of it is just you can just go wherever. Um, but it's nice also to have like, oh well, we need to do this like now.
I
You could
also
do
do
these
think
other things on the
you can
way.
go wherever and you can do the final boss immediately. That works once. If you do it
It works
again, it doesn't
once.
work again. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like all the open designness that we've kind of touched upon, how it just like, oh well, who knows where the player could be in the game? They could not have this yet. They could not have this yet. They could not have this yet. So I guess the bosses can just be killed by anything. If you have a bunch of bombs, you just do that. And it's like, okay, on the one hand, that's cool to discover, but this is a Zelda game, and I get the hook shot 5 seconds before using it on the hook shot boss, and now I'm really good at using the hook shot. And the boss can't be killed in any other way because it's the hook shot dungeon. That's okay. If you once you take that away, that was just an action game, and
so
you
I'm gonna
just
write down
have
have a hookshot
sandbox.
dungeon.
Okay, and we'll reinterpret what
AKA
exactly that means like 6 months from now and not
we'll
remember.
figure out. We'll reverse engineer the
Hey,
meaning.
have a goddamn hook shot in your video game.
God. And I'm gonna do you one better. Why stop at a hook shot when you can just have the dual claw shots from Twilight Princess? Because that's just
Mm,
2 hook shots.
yeah.
You could do stupid things like Spider-Man with that, and it would be funny.
hmm
Um,
Have the dual claw shots. Why stop there? Why not go full Just Cause? Shoot claws at other things and tether them
yeah,
together.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Smash enemies
I'm gonna
together
go
with
right. Go full
the
Just
claw
Cause.
shots. Just yeah. With any of the things that I'm saying are going to be completely lost in translation because of...
Link, go full Just Cause. Have Link blow up an oil
We're
rig.
gonna have a follow-up episode where we're gonna go back through this list and like, what the hell were we talking
Oh,
about?
that's going to happen. When it comes out, we've played it. We're going to look at this list and count how many of these match up to what Brett wants.
You don't look through other podcast notes and think, were we on something?
Nintendo watches this episode and then they just put Rico or whatever his name is from Just Cause in Tears of the Kingdom. They're like, yeah, we did it. We did
Bruce
exactly
makes
what
another
Brett wanted.
appearance.
Gross.
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 Yep. I need the Groose scene, as I was telling Wyatt before. I need Groose to come plummeting out of the sky as Link is like parasailing or doing something, or someone, or like a hobgoblin or something that is Groose-esque, just falling after you, going.
God.
All right, Brett. What Groose-esque thing needs to change?
I don't know. I don't know Groose-esque, but I also do agree
Groosey?
that the soundtrack is like, it's like pretty and it's cute, but like when I get more emotion from listening to farty synth trumpets and synth snare drum doing the same lick over and over again for boss music than like an actual like real guy playing a real piano, I think that means something. So out in the world doing things, that's fine. Have the piano for that, but like when something awesome needs to happen, I think the music should reflect
All right,
that.
so I'm gonna
Because
write. Don't be I am Setsuna.
okay, yeah, I actually do know what that means, so that does.
I figured you would be the only one who does.
Yeah, because like it's not like Zelda is not known for having some of the most iconic video game music, or multiple games that
not.
revolve entirely around
Why would you
music.
think that, Brett? Why would you ever
That would be
make that
foolish.
stupid,
You
dumb
remember-
mistake?
So I remember because I was looking up like videos that
Silly
was talking about
fan.
the production of Breath of the Wild, and there was a different instrument that they were going to use at one point, and then they decided to do the piano last minute. I forgot what instrument it was, but someone had a like a track of music that they had made with that, and it was super cool. And I gotta
A
find it.
single
Hold on.
didgeridoo.
You find it while Brett continues his negativity.
Um, I think I mean this I'm getting to the point now where it's just like everybody who dislikes parts of Breath of the Wild
Oh,
also says these things.
Brett,
But
nitpick, please. Go whatever you want,
well,
whatever you
this
want
isn't
to
even a
change.
nitpick, but I like the straight up lack of Zelda dungeons in Breath of the Wild. Like that is one of the main reasons where it just is this a Zelda game? I know it
All
says
right,
it
so
on the
I'm
tin,
writing
but
in
like, oh
all
my
caps. Zelda
god.
dungeons need to be in the Zelda game.
Okay. Good.
That one
makes
seems
sense.
clear.
Yes.
That's also one that I agree with.
Because it's like it's the same thing with the bosses where it's like this semi puzzle solving element is like, yeah, at times it's frustrating and like weird, but like that's part of these games. That's what makes them not just whatever other 3D
Don't you feel
character action
satisfied?
game. Exactly. You feel satisfied when you solve them, and you know what? Some of them, when you haven't played the game in 2 years, you go back to do it again. You've completely forgotten what the hell to do, and you get to solve it all over again.
All right, so I'm writing. I need to
Um,
get my satisfaction as another one.
hmm
Hmm.
God, what else? I don't know. Like none of the characters in Breath of the Wild like annoyed me, which is probably because they didn't do anything. They should probably add characters that do something.
All right.
Because again, like I'm like going through Twilight Princess, and it's like, man, like Midna is like literally there all the time, and she has motivations for helping you and like gives you advice, and you would not be able to make it through puzzles without her being there. And like Zelda is like forced into hiding, and then I know later in the game she does do things because she's a major part of the final Ganon fight. Like all these other like characters like have their lives and go about things, and you're just kind of also there. And when you show up, they go, "Hey, that's cool. It's been a really long time. I'm glad you saved those children from being slaughtered in the village when everything went Twilight mode." It's not like, "Oh, thank God, you've brought me the milk from 6 miles across the map.
Too
Now
much
you
blue
can
milk.
continue to save the world." Too much blue milk. Put no blue milk on
No
the
blue
list.
milk.
Put no blue milk.
All right, all right. No blue milk is on the list.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything like the control scheme or whatever is going to change, but that did not agree with me.
All right, control scheme
Um,
be better.
yeah, I don't know.
Control
don't know.
scheme be more pog gamer. I think feels
Hmm
good for this one.
Yeah,
Ugh.
All right, do you need a dodge button?
a dodge button would be great. I would love to dodge roll in the direction that I'm holding the stick, corresponding to pressing the button that dodges. Um, that's a level of quality that we have not reached in
Yeah, we
video game
can't get there
development
yet.
yet.
Do
I've
you
never seen it done
want,
before.
Brett,
Does it even
do
exist?
you want more motion controls?
I would rather motion control myself off of a bridge.
All right, I'm gonna write. I would rather motion control myself off of a bridge.
That's the most easily untranslatable one out of all the ones you've done so far. I don't even need to think about that.
All
'Cause,
right,
like I
horse breeding, Brett. How do you feel?
horse breeding.
Only if it's
Uh,
as interactive as Red Dead Redemption 2's horses are
I
already.
if you make it so that people who do care about it can do it, and people who don't care about it, like me, don't have to, good job.
All
It's
right, I'm
like
gonna write. I
Pokemon
don't
breeding
care
where
about
people are.
animals.
You're right. I don't.
Oh no.
I only care about rocks.
Only care about rocks. As a separate entry. I'm excited to go through this at the end and see what you think lines up with your.
I know it's going to be
assumption
incredible.
here. All right.
Yeah.
Do you need to kill God?
No, probably. Zelda's like one of the
What's
few
going
games where you work alongside the god, and it's like okay.
I'm talking
Uh,
JRPG level twist here. Do we need to swap it around? Final moment, you know.
where here's a callback. Alex said, "What if you fought alongside Ganon?" You know what? Here's my big brain. This would be really cool and will probably never happen because this is a franchise owned by Nintendo. The Link, Zelda, this cycle has gone on for long enough. We have to Shin Megami Tensei break the cycle with me, Ganondorf, as your friend. We can't keep fighting each other like this.
All right,
Every
so
single
final
hundreds of years.
boss is not Ganon, and you fight with Ganon
Well, I
Yeah, to
really
break
hope that's
the cycle.
I really hope
break
that's the
the
case because there
cycle.
was like in a lot of the flashbacks and things, and like with I could be hallucinating, but I swear there was talk about like breaking the cycle or this being the end, like the cycle decayed.
So I
You
do
need
want to
to
ask.
understand,
There
Like, this
actually is
his
one other
last
question I had
reincarnation.
for Wyatt. Is
All right,
this?
I've been really tuned out because I've been trying to find that one piece of information, and I can't find
Is
it
this
anywhere.
before Skyward Sword? Does
No.
Tears of the Kingdom set up Skyward Sword? Are we completing the cycle and going full flip around?
I don't think Nintendo cares that much about the timeline to do something like that.
Okay.
I think
Because we
it's a super
just
cool
got
theory.
a Skyward Sword remake, and if I were a betting person,
Mm.
that might mean something. I'm not, so it doesn't. But
You are. We are in a fantasy league together. You are a betting person.
but you see, my bets are to take down all of you. They're not to get me anything. There's a
Oh,
reason that I
they're
put
purely out of
Prime
spite.
Boss Rockay City on my
Yes.
list. All right, so that's a no from you, Wyatt, right? You don't
Yeah.
think that's going to happen?
I don't think
no,
they care enough about
Nintendo
the
doesn't care
timeline.
enough.
Yeah.
You
That's my
know,
answer.
about their most beloved, most memorable character.
All
Couldn't
right,
give a
now
shit
Brett,
about him.
I got to ask you for one more thing. What do the amiibo do?
Who the fuck cares about the amiibo?
That's why I want
Like-
to ask you. What does the amiibo
Oh my
do?
God.
The only
Are
way
they-
you
are
can
they-
get the grapple shot is through the amiibo. The only way you
Oh
can get the hook
God,
shot.
that'd be horrible. Are they making?
Pay to
Are
win,
they
baby.
still making amiibos? Did they stop
They're still
making
coming
them?
out
Or
with
are they
them.
still making them?
Really?
What are they used for and
Huh.
everything else?
Smash.
I don't even know what they're
Skylanders.
Only
doing anymore.
Smash. Really?
But they're still making them for characters now that are like they're not even in Smash.
Part of
'cause
it,
they're
well,
too new.
I feel like a lot of it is just to own, to have like
Well, yeah,
because
because they're nice
cool
like
little
painted
figures.
figures.
Yeah.
But
God,
like
I
for
cannot
gameplay
believe-
mechanics.
Because I know in Breath of the Wild that like, oh, this has a chest with a bunch of themed items around this character. This has like armor or something like that.
That was
Maybe they
huge
give you
fad
some
for a while
drip.
that Skylanders started.
Maybe they give you some cool drip.
They give you some cool drip.
Yeah. If you put the Kirby amiibo onto your Switch, Link turns into an untextured pink Unity sphere, and you can roll around the map like that, and we'll call it Kirby mode.
That'd be
All right.
amazing.
And
Does Link
the
get a
Kirby
mouthful
amiibo
mode?
comes with Kirby mode.
Yeah.
All right, sounds great. I do want to get one final prediction from everyone, which is a wild prediction. What's your out there prediction? Your thing that you don't think will happen but could. Something you just think it would be great if this game had this.
I mean, them breaking the cycle and working with Ganon, and then them also, well, not good, but it would certainly be shocking if they said, "Okay, this is the last Zelda game. We're not making any more."
All right, this is the final
I
Zelda
mean-
game. We're breaking the
What
cycle.
a shame. Oh my God.
That would be horrifying,
I mean,
but it would be out there.
I'm gonna stick with what I said earlier about having quests to create different like permanent weapons. I don't think they're gonna do anything crazy like that. That's my big wish list item. That's my answer.
Okay, Brett.
I think right after the game comes out, it's going to be revealed that they were actually working with the writer for SMT Nocturne, and there's going to be multiple endings for the game. One of which
Ooh.
you do the normal thing, and the great whatever happens, and it sets up Skyward Sword where the world's all destroyed, and the cycle continues. And the other ending is the true demon ending, and instead of Lucifer, it's Ganondorf, and you side with him to break the cycle, and that way they could have the cool meta Zelda ending possible, and then also make more Zelda games after it without the Nintendo YouTubers freaking out about the continuity of a bunch of games with no continuity.
Oh yeah, because with Skyward Sword, the timeline split there with the young and old Link. They could do another timeline split.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
If they care that much.
my wild prediction here. All right, imagine you've just finished Tears of the Kingdom. Credits are rolling, beautiful music is happening, tears
This
are
is
in
a
your
Skyrim
eyes because of
joke.
the
I'm going to
emotion that
strangle
has
you.
happened, the cycles that have been broken. You're so ready. You get to the end of the credits, and then it says, Link will return. And then there is a reveal of the Legend of Zelda cinematic universe. We are getting a movie of The Legend of Zelda, and it will be revealed in Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh my god.
Danny DeVito will have a role. I don't care what it is.
I want Danny DeVito to play Beetle.
Danny DeVito is Zelda.
Yep. Danny DeVito is Tinkle.
Well,
I think
no.
Oh yes.
I think well, it would probably be part of this whole like Smash Brothers cinematic universe that Illumination wants to do.
Yeah, that's
right?
the multiverse. The multiverse is Nintendo, and then it's going to come together, and then we're going to re-release Subspace Emissary. All right, we're redoing Subspace Emissary from Smash Brawl, except this time it's a full 3D beat 'em up with the most characters that have ever been in a 3D character action game. All right, I'm talking we're getting every single fighter from Smash Brawl is in it.
By the way, quick sidetrack, I found it.
Yeah.
Originally, the entire soundtrack was supposed to use a dulcimer instead of a piano. And then it was
I
changed.
don't no idea what that is.
It's
All
kind of like it's a string instrument. It's kind of like a tiny little. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like you use like a little hammer and you like hit different strings with it. Yeah.
It's the proto piano.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Anyway.
we've done the episode, so it's time for shoutouts. I hope you enjoy the shoutouts.
Yeah,
that are coming
I'll go
your
first.
direction.
I'll go first. Shout out to The Last of Us. I know there's a new episode that premiered today, and I haven't seen it yet because I'm watching it with other people. But wow, what a good show! This is a fantastic piece of television entertainment that we've got on our hands. I think it threads the needle so well of sticking to the games when it needs to, like even down to just having the exact lines of dialogue and like exact same shots and everything. But I think when it deviates into its own thing, I think it makes perfect sense in order to expand on characters that we wanted to know more about, or makes changes that make sure that the story fits in the structure of a TV show much better. The casting is great. The show looks fantastic. Lots of great CGI, but also practical effects. Like the bloater is one big suit. They use a practical suit for the big bloater guy.
I miss practical effects.
That's great.
It's great. There's some CG shots with it, but a lot of it's practical. It's so well done. I can't wait for them to do Last of Us 2 and have the whole Last of Us 2 discourse happen all over again. It's gonna be great.
It'll be so much fun.
Are they doing Last of Us 2?
Yes, they've confirmed that the first season.
Oh my god!
They've confirmed that the first season is the first game, and they are doing a season 2, which is the second game.
Oh no!
So,
oh god!
We'll see what happens.
Oh crap!
I'm sure people won't receive death threats. All right.
Why would that happen?
Why would that happen? Brett, you spoke, which means it's your turn to go.
I spoiled it because my camera's too far off the side, but I had finished the Gundam Furact from the episode of Witch from Mercury that we just watched the other day.
Oh, he's such a cool boy.
This line of kits for the new series is really, 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 really good. I was not expecting it to be this good, but like some of them, even though they're so small, have like a full inner frame, which is just weird because there's just no reason to do that. And like even it does I mean it's really small, but like it does the arm split open to have the beam saber come out and grab.
Nice little
There's a
beams.
hole in the foot, put the beam saber in the foot if you're freaky like that.
Oh, the killer
I
heels.
like having it stand, so it's just gonna not have that happen. But yeah,
Gotta get one of those flight
nice and
stands.
cheap too.
Ooh, nice.
Nice, Alex. What's up
I'm
in the realm.
Mine's a little bit of an anti shout out.
Oh, great.
So this is also part of the Florida story.
oh no.
If So first off, don't ever buy clothes in a hotel store. It's way massively overpriced because they can. But also, you know, even like selling clothes that where the median price was $500 for something is absolutely ridiculous. Where the clothes quality shows that it is not that good. I know where they put the money. It's a bad place to put the money. No store should ever do this, and I'm cursing myself by bringing it up here. Um, instead of the bag that they put the product in, like instead of like a paper or a plastic bag with the store's name on it or something like that, like preferably a paper bag that's nice and recyclable. Um, this disposable bag is made out of pleather.
Oh.
What?
Oh. No.
That's so bizarre. All right, weird world of wacky fashion. Get out of here. I don't want to be stuck in your zone. All right, well, I'm gonna do a simple shout out this time. Like a Dragon Ishin came out, and oh boy, am I happy to be playing another Like a Dragon game that feels straight out of the PS3, and it's great. They changed so little about what makes up the gameplay of this game outside of porting it to a completely different engine. So
What's the
yeah, it
karaoke
plays like a
like?
PS3 game in the good way, not the bad way. It's a video game, and there's a skill to unlock cannons as a weapon. So
But
I'm
but
pretty
what's the
happy.
karaoke like in ancient
I haven't
Japan,
reached it yet.
Yakuza?
It does
Ooh.
exist. There is a
Ooh.
karaoke style minigame. I think it might be dance themed instead of regular karaoke, but I could be wrong. There might also be a dance minigame. There might be two separate ones. Yeah, it's also a historical game, relatively. It does warn you at the start to not take any of it too seriously because they're playing fast and loose, but it is telling a story about real characters. So it's a fun little era of Japanese history to look at. That's it. That's the end of the show. As always, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice. Next few episodes will be weird because I'm traveling. They may not be live streamed on Twitch, but will be uploaded to YouTube and Anchor soon afterwards. So they'll be everywhere, as usual, just maybe at wonky times. That's it. The show's over.
Baby paste.
Good to bring it back.